Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Kinky Politics with Chris and Kai.
Woohoo!
It's going to be our last episode of the year. I know we said that last time, but we decided to do a special election wrap up because it was just too wild. So we figured we want to talk about it.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about the election today.
We didn't want to. Just kidding. We wanted to, but
You
do we
came back,
really
what, a
want
week
to?
before the election?
Huh?
How many days before the election did you come back?
When was the election? November 3rd? I came back October 26th. So a
Okay.
little bit.
So you were here for about a week before the election. Okay.
Yes, sure. But before we get into that, you guys, Chris had COVID. I know. I'm saying the same thing. Why are you here? He's surviving, and he survived, obviously. And we're so grateful, but that's part of the reason why there's been a little bit of a delay. So we're sorry about that, but also so happy that Chris is fully recovered. His girlfriend, who also had it, is fully recovered. He's in fact back going to work now. But I now know someone who had COVID and survived, for real. You know what I mean? Like, as in, I know them, not like for real, they survived, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I know them. So, Chris, please tell us about your experience and how you found out and what's it been like. And I'll prompt you, I'm sure, because I got tons of questions for you.
Okay. Well, I feel like it's going to be a little disappointing because I didn't have like any crazy story where I was, that sick.
All praises.
So for me, I woke up, well, it was like Wednesday night. I was, when I was getting ready to go to bed that night, I was kind of feeling like I might be getting sick. Then the next day I woke up, definitely felt a little
worse.
Does
that feel like? What does that feel like? What does might be getting sick feel like? Give us all the details.
I don't know how to describe it. It's like, when you're getting the flu or whatever, a day or two before you actually get real sick, where you're like feeling like death, you look back and you're like, yeah, that's what that was a couple of days ago when I was kind of feeling a little, but I was just like a little light, very, very light body aches, just a little extra, I don't know, fatigue than you would normally feel type thing. And a little, I don't know, that kind of thing where you feel like, do I have a fever? I can't quite tell, but I feel like I might be getting a fever. So I went to work the next day, and I have to be at work real early in the morning. I go to work at 4 a.m. So I woke up at 2:30 in the morning, took a shower, wasn't feeling that great, went to work at 4 a.m. I work at an airport. I had to take some stuff over to the airport. And while doing that, I just noticed that I was quickly starting to feel worse. And I was like, nah, because I was only at work for 2 hours. So I left at 6 a.m. that day. And I told my boss, I was like, nah, I don't feel good. Like, I'm going home. So I went home, and throughout the course of Thursday, by the end of Thursday, I was like, nah, I'm definitely not going to be going to work tomorrow. So I called into work on Friday, just basically laid in bed for about 3 straight days. It honestly felt like I was getting strep throat because my throat was kind of hurting. But it never got like really bad to where like I couldn't talk or couldn't swallow or anything. But my throat was kind of sore, had body aches, fever. Like I woke up every night just covered in sweat, and then 2 hours after I got up, I'd be sitting there shivering, and there was nothing I could do to stay warm.
Oh my God.
Just kind of kept alternating back and forth between that. But I never had like the cough or runny nose or loss of taste or smell or anything that are the common COVID symptoms. So at that time, I still didn't really think I had COVID. I thought it was maybe more like a flu, or because some people at my work some people at work had gotten sick too, and apparently wasn't COVID, or they were still coming to work. So I don't know what they had, but and then I went back to work about, what was this, 5 days later, I went back to work the following Tuesday. Yeah. So I have Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. So I went back to work on Tuesday, and I felt fine until because I work in a warehouse, so we have to do some light physical labor, and I was pushing around some carts that had some stuff on them, and it's something I do every day. Never really noticed it, but to that day, I just felt like I was breathing a lot heavier than I should be,
Mm.
and I just kept feeling like I wanted to take my mask off and just like because it felt like it was prohibiting me from breathing or something like. So that was when I kind of started thinking, I was like, shit, I might have COVID. So I told my girlfriend that day, like, we're gonna go get tested as soon as I get off work, and I did. And
What was testing like?
um, so they take a Q-tip.
No, no, no. I got it done.
Oh,
Don't recommend. I don't recommend. I'm saying like, what was your? Did you have to like go into a line? Like, where were you?
oh
Like, what?
no. So there's so I'm lucky enough to have Kaiser as my health insurance provider. It's only available in like California, Colorado, and like one other state. Um, so they're pretty sweet because it's I don't know, it's really weird. Like you can't go anywhere else but them, but only people that have them can use them as well. So there's never really that much of a line. It's really easy. It's very streamlined on how to get an appointment and everything because everything's through a Kaiser hospital. Whereas my girlfriend has a different insurance provider, so trying to find a location for her to get her test was a little more complicated. um,
Oh.
but yeah,
So
I just pulled up.
excuse me, aren't there free testing centers? Or do you have
There
to?
are, but it's very I don't really know how to find them. I know they supposedly have them. I've heard rumors, but it's not like they're advertised or broadcasted or, it's not like you're seeing commercials for them like, hey, this is where you go get tested. They just tell you to get tested, but there's no real clear, concise way to kind of let people know where to get tested. And it's,
Google?
yeah, we're not really, I don't know how other countries are doing this, but, and I think it's different in countries that have like socialized healthcare too, because you kind of, I don't know, it's a little easier to kind of know where to go for stuff. In America, I don't know, you have all these different healthcare places, and some places don't take your healthcare. So I don't know, it's a pain in the ass. But for me, it was lucky because I have Kaiser. I just call up Kaiser and say, hey, I want to get tested. They tell me which hospital to go to. And luckily, I was able to go uh, that day. I didn't really have to wait, just went in. They did the Q-tip thing. I was out in and out in 15 minutes. And that took about, because the test I took was a 24 to 48 hour window for results. My girlfriend's was 3 to 5 days. They were advertising some that were 15 minutes, but I don't know how accurate that one is because that seems a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then I got the test results back about 36 hours later, said I was positive, and then I took 2 weeks off of work and quarantined, and it was extremely boring because by that time I was pretty much over coronavirus. Like all my symptoms had gone away.
How long did it take you to get over it?
Um, well, the fever and the like the body aches, that was 3 to 4 days.
Hmm.
Um, I never noticed the breathing thing because I was basically just going from my bed to my recliner back to my bed. I wasn't doing anything like going on long walks or any kind of physical activity to recognize that I had a breathing issue. And taking deep breaths. Cause I remember early on in COVID, they were kind of telling people to like breathe in as deep as you could and try and hold it for like 10 seconds. And if you could do that, you didn't have COVID or something like that. And so I was able to do that too. Like I was able to take a deep breath in and hold it. So I was like,
Oh my God, you were really lucky.
after
Really?
all that stuff went away, it was kind of when I had the very minor kind of breathing stuff where, yeah, I don't know if you've ever had asthma. Anybody that has, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
Yep.
because I had
Yeah.
it for a little bit. My dad is a lifelong indoor smoker. So when I was in middle school, I had very temporary like asthma, and I remember kind of what that felt like. And that was kind of what it felt like um, when I was at work and I started having breathing issues. It just kind of felt like I needed an inhaler, which was kind of terrifying because when you start feeling like you can't breathe and there's nothing you can do to fix that, it's just like, oh shit, like. So those people that had it bad and like had to get put on an inhaler, like I can't even imagine what that was, or not an inhaler, that tube down their throat. What do they call
Later.
that?
A
Incubator or
ventilator.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing, like, I can't imagine that.
Oh my gosh.
I'm grateful mine was very light. It honestly just felt like the like kind of a moderate flu or something that you would get, like, because I don't really get sick that often either. My immune system's pretty good. I
So
usually
it's
get,
like almost like a bronchitis, a mild bronchitis.
yeah, like I'll usually get sick maybe once every 2 or 3 years to where I have to call into work. And this is what it normally feels like, kind of this, where you just kind of alternating between fever and chills, body aches for 3 to 4 days, and then it kind of goes away and you kind of have some congestion for a week or two after that. But I'm all good now. I've been back to the gym a few times. Breathing is good. Um,
Really happy to hear that. We're so happy you recovered. I mean, the numbers are projected to get worse here, and I'm back in America. I don't know if oh yeah, no, we did say that. We did talk about how I came back. I came back in the thick of it.
yeah,
Dang it. But I'm really happy to hear that like you recovered. You're one of the people who like was resilient, thank God, and your girlfriend as well. Gosh, what a traumatic ordeal.
yeah. The worst part was when I came back to work, my supervisor has mysteriously been gone for work for like 8 or 9 days shortly after I um, kind of tested positive. And I've kind of tried, you know, talking to a couple like other supervisors or managers about it, like just kind of like bringing it up to try and see if I could get them to say something to give me a little bit. And they've been very tight-lipped about it, which is really odd because they're normally not like that. So I'm just kind of hoping that I didn't, because I did go back to work that one day while I had coronavirus. But the other thing too is like once I kind of started suspecting I may have it, I at that point basically just for the rest of that day made sure I wasn't really around anybody because I was like I don't think I have it, but there's a chance I could, so I just want to stay away from my coworkers the rest of the day. Luckily, I have a job where because I do a lot of inventory and ordering, so a lot of my days kind of spent at a desk in an office by myself, so it's easy for me to kind of isolate. But I just hope I didn't give him coronavirus because he has asthma. He's got a young child and a very pregnant wife who's due, I think
Oh,
in the next
shoot.
month. So, but I don't really know what's going on yet. So I don't want to start beating myself up for it. But I'm just like, I hope I didn't give somebody else coronavirus because that was always my biggest fear was not me getting it because I figured if I got it, it would pretty much go the way it went for me. But people that are suspect to worse complications, such as people with asthma or things like that, I don't want to give it to them.
Yep, I feel you.
We're having an outbreak where I
Okay.
live right now. They're talking about a shutdown.
Yeah, my brother who lives in Albuquerque mentioned that they're going into lockdown now.
Yeah, I saw New Mexico and no, New Mexico and Oregon both announced that they were not fully shutting down, but shutting down much more than any other states in the country right now.
They're going. Albuquerque's going into a lockdown, which is like crazy. New Mexico or Albuquerque, I know that area is going into lockdown. I don't know if the whole state is or what, but like they are definitely going into a lockdown, which is it is what it is.
I'm
But
pretty sure Denver will be there. Well, that's the thing too, is like for people, um, people that have been paying attention to the news, the entire coronavirus thing, back in the very beginning of coronavirus, when it first started happening, they did say this winter it would be a lot worse than it was in the beginning because of the things that make coronavirus much more likely to spread and thrive exist in the winter time. So, when we were seeing it in the spring, nobody was really paying attention, but they were saying they were like, it's going to be the second wave or third wave or whatever in the winter time is going to be worse than what we're dealing with right now. So be prepared. That was kind of why they were so adamant that we get our shit together and start really figuring out how to deal with this. Because if we didn't, then we could get blindsided this winter.
excuse me. Oh, gosh. Yeah, and I think we are. I think we're getting blindsided. You know what I mean? I think it's only getting worse. But anyway,
On to the
good to
election.
see you. Huh?
Said on to the election.
Please, yes. because the talking about COVID is depressing, but I
Yeah.
suppose talking about the election is sort of depressing as well.
Yeah.
But here we are. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously Joe Biden won, so there's the silver lining. Um, the the bad news, I guess, probably the unexpected results were the Democrats did lose seats in the House. I think it was 8 or 9.
Nine.
They still have a majority, but they don't quite have that majority to. I don't know if their majority is high enough now to just pass whatever they want in the House. They may actually have to get a few Republican votes. I
I
could be
think
wrong
it
about
still
that.
is. No, I think it still
Okay.
is.
And then the Senate is basically tied right now, and there's 2 Senate seats that are going to run in early January, shortly before Biden gets sworn in. I think maybe a week before.
Right.
Um, uh, those races will be pretty close. It's looking like. I don't know anything about those Democrats in that race. I know one of the Republicans. I'm going to be very ashamed of my country if she is elected because she is one of those. I don't know if you remember a couple of those senators or Congress members that were found out to have sold off millions and millions of dollars worth of stock
Yes.
while they were telling the public coronavirus was no threat. They were getting top secret, what do they call them, security briefings or whatever in Congress, letting them know the exact opposite was true. They took that information, sold off millions of dollars of stock before those stocks plummeted like a week or two later, and somehow that shit's legal, and that lady's might get reelected to Congress after doing that. And I'm just like, oh, and she said some, I don't remember her comments, but she's also the owner of the Atlanta WNBA team. She said some controversial shit about Black Lives Matter, and I don't know if you remember one of the NBA or WNBA teams was protesting their owner.
Oh,
That's her.
that
So
was her.
she's a white lady from, I want to say Illinois or Iowa, one of those two.
Sounds like
She's a Karen
Iowa.
and a half. She's some like, so you went we both went to the same school, so you remember like those sororities, that the ones that had like all the blonde white chicks that look, had like probably a black card in their pocket. She's one of those chicks. She married some dude who's like some $1 billion investor. I don't know what he does, like not like a regular stock trader, that kind of weird mutual fund type thing or something. I don't know what he does exactly, but that's the world she runs in. And somehow she thought it would be appropriate to denounce Black Lives Matter as the owner of a professional sports team in like the black mecca of America. Like I just, it's crazy. Like, I just hope she loses.
Like a winning strategy right there.
Yeah. And somehow she might win. Like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think anybody that says they know what's going to happen in that race right now is talking out their ass, I think, but we're still too far away, and still a lot of dominoes to fall because nobody knows what's going to happen with the economy or COVID in the next 2 months, or Trump for that matter. So
no, we're still dealing with this issue of him conceding, and they just had this Million MAGA march in DC.
That's going on today, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw some story that said like Trump like drove by, and
he's
I
gone
don't
his way.
know, he probably just smiled and felt like a god again.
Yeah, he was on his way. Apparently, he was on his way to a golfing session. And instead of, giving a nice little speech like he likes to do, and he could have done since they were, you know what I mean? Like hyping him up, he decided just to drive by and say hello and leave.
Yeah.
Amazing to me. I'm just like, wow, this is your dude. He's not here for you. Doesn't give a single fuck.
No.
But here you are still parading around and loving him. But I have to say, it is terrifying knowing that this Million MAGA March thing had started because of the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys are the ones who organized this and put this together. And it is terrifying to know that he is not ready to concede. It doesn't sound like he will be ready to concede ever, even if things legally, you know, don't go in his favor, but legally they don't go in his favor. You know what I mean? I feel like we could see a civil war.
Yeah,
And
that's weird too, because I don't even know what those dividing lines would be. Because like with the Civil War last time, it was very clear. It was, the state lines. But now I don't know how a civil war would even. I don't. Well, yeah, I have no idea what that would look like. The thing that's kind of weird to me about this Trump thing is like, so Trump, the Supreme Court or the, whoever says no, Joe Biden's the winner. Trump says no, I won. Who ultimately then decides who if Trump stays in the White House or not? It's going to be the U.S. military. And
now to
yeah,
get him.
for like how many months? I mean, Trump has basically been letting us know this is what he was going to do for at least 6 to 9 months openly. He's been hinting at it for a couple of years, and all this time.
But to be fair, how could they plan for that? It's his administration.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, if I'm a reporter and I hear the president of the United States hinting at he might not accept the election results, my first instinct as a reporter is going to be, let me reach out to the generals of the U.S. military and just see how they feel about this. Like, are you willing to support this man if he refuses to accept the election? Because that's ultimately what it boils down to, is who does the U.S. military side with? And I feel like at some point we need to ask them that. Like, are we just waiting for Donald Trump to call for a coup and see what they do? Or should we maybe start putting them on record in advance? Like, hey, I just want to hear you go on record letting us know, like, are you going to side with the American public or are you going to side with Donald Trump? Because
I
I
was
think people in America just don't think a coup or a dictatorship can happen here. But I don't. If you look back at history, it's very easy. Like, it happens so fast a lot of times too, and it's unexpected. So I don't know. I would feel I won't feel comfortable about this Donald Trump thing until I hear some high-ranking U.S. military people ask, like, "Are you going to support Donald Trump if he refuses to accept the election?" I want to hear them say that they no, I think Joe Biden won this election because who's Mike Pompeo? I forget what his title is exactly, but he's a former general or something. I think high-ranking military person who's now in Trump's administration. He
Isn't
just
Mike
said
Pompeo Secretary of State? Who's Secretary of
could
State?
be he could be. I think so. But
Yeah.
he just said yesterday that basically, Trump won like this election. Trump won this election. Like, we're not leaving. We are not leaving. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy because
Yeah.
that's a guy that has pull with like the military.
That's the Secretary of State. So there you go.
So I'm like, when people in that position are saying these kind of things, I think it's at that point we need to be asking the generals and police chiefs, like, hey, what are you going to do if this happens? Like, we need to know, like, what is your planned response if this dude refuses to leave? Because we're at that point now.
Well,
Like,
the military follows Secretary of State. Has to.
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So
Trump's the commander in chief. Technically, they have to obey Trump, but they're also sworn to protect this country from both enemies, foreign and domestic. So that's what I'm saying. Like, why are these? Why are the? I get why Fox isn't asking that question, which I have to give Fox props. They have from like since like maybe the day after the election, they've constantly been consistent in saying Joe Biden won. Like, Donald Trump lost. Like, he needs to just accept the defeat and bow out. And that's why Trump now wants to take them out. He wants to create his own news network and take out Fox News. I'm like, this dude's like 80 years old and he's talking about like trying to still take over the world.
and he's thinking about running again in 2024.
Yeah.
You hear about
He lives
that?
that long. I don't know. I mean, you just don't see that many old fat people, really. It's like,
But he survived COVID.
I know. I don't know.
He's resilient. I think there's lots of people out there who tend to stay. It doesn't really matter about their age so much. They
Yeah.
tend to stay young because of their they tend to stay young because of their like youthfulness.
Yeah.
As much as like we downplay that, like he's got a lot, sorry, as much as we downplay, um, you know, how sick he looks and how he's older and all that stuff, I feel like, or not downplay it, but we like, you know, just like, oh, he's gonna die, blah, 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 blah. He looks like he could keep going, bro. He looks like
Oh
he
yeah.
could keep going until he's like in his 90s even. He's
Yeah.
that type of resilient type of character.
Hmm.
Reminds me of the like rock and roll artists who will be like, I can smoke, I can drink, and they
Oh yeah.
live until they're like super duper old.
Yeah.
And they like, you know, they're sick. Like they're not sick, but they like, you know, drink and do drugs and all of that.
Yeah.
He reminds me of those types.
Yeah, apparently that is the one I guess redeeming quality about Trump. Like he apparently does not drink, do drugs. He's always, I don't know why, but he's always kind of been like that. Like everybody that knows him's like, no, that he doesn't do drugs or drink. Like I can't even imagine it. But one thing I guess I do want to talk about is the election results themselves. Like they were kind of surprising and unexpected. It was much, much closer than people anticipated. Um, I think over the past, what's it been, 2 weeks now, or just a week? I've kind of lost track of time with COVID.
It's been at least 2 weeks.
Okay, so over the past 2 weeks, I feel like I've seen Democrats go from like um, over the top elation to kind of now starting to realize that like we barely beat Donald Trump. Why are people not voting for us? Like that's kind of where we're at now with the Democratic Party, because the shocking results were Trump doubled his percentage of the black vote that he got in 2020 from 2016, um, which is because I think from black men it went from like 9% to 18%, and from black women it went from 4% to 8%. So he's still not doing well with the black community, but he did double the percentage of the black vote that he got from last time, which was kind of shocking to I think everybody. Um, Less shocking was that he did increase his support among Latino voters. I can't remember what that percentage was, but he did shockingly well with Latino voters too. Democrats thought they were just going to do so well with Latino voters, but I
It's
think
all those
Trump,
Cubans. It's all
yeah, I
those
think Trump
Cubans.
got close to 40% of Latino voters in this time. And then I think his support with white women stayed roughly about the same. And with white men, it went down just barely. So that was kind of what happened. Both candidates saw much higher turnouts in 2020 than 2016. So that's a good thing. Like more America, I think this is the highest percentage of American voters that have voted since I think they said like around World War One, like
Oh,
1940,
really?
something
I
crazy
didn't
like
know
that.
that statistic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I still don't know what the actual percentage of voters that was, but normally it's around the 50% mark. So it could just be up to like 60%. But then when you look at voting percentages in like other countries, it's like 75, 80%, crazy like that. So it's like we still got a ways to go, but it's a good thing that record numbers of voters on both sides came out. Um, but I think now like the big thing is just Democratic voters, Democratic politicians, strategists are all trying to figure out like why are people not voting for us and how do we get them to vote for us? Like, because I think the common thing is just to kind of a lot of people like at first were kind of going with the because Trump almost won, that means we have a lot more racists in this country, and we need to hammer down on racism again. But as the weeks have kind of went on, I feel like the message has kind of shifted a little bit more towards like a more introspective look at like the Democrats um, past like 20, 30 years, kind of what they have allowed to happen, kind of what they haven't fought against, and you know, kind of just how that looks to the public. And regardless of how Democrats feel about themselves, at some point they kind of have to factor in like how does the public see them, and the messaging has to kind of shift a little bit to change that perception because with social media, with Fox News and these people, they're going to be just nonstop bombarding people with, these crazy bogus lies about Democrats. And it's like Democrats still haven't figured out a way to combat that, because their voters don't seem, I don't know, don't seem as driven to the polls by, Republicans suck. And the way that I don't know, I'm probably rambling a little bit, but the the Democrats don't seem to be able to turn out their voters the way Republicans can as consistently with negative messaging. So they're at this point now where they need to figure out a way to message to the entire country and not just kind of their base. And I don't know what their plan to do that is going to be. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think it's hard. I think when your ideology is centered around social issues,
Yeah.
you'll never be a strong party unless you can consistently produce the same, like you can stay consistent with your, first of all, your messaging, but also stick to what you say you're going to do over and over and over again. So you act collective, like there aren't like within this whole social paradigm and this whole like ideology that we have, there aren't various other social paradigms and ideologies within that particular party. And then the two parties and just like kind of do their own thing when it comes to being consistent with what they say they're going to do or what they say they want. And the thing is too, we don't really come together as a party on that. But I feel like, as we mentioned, I think in a couple episodes prior, conservatives, Republicans are able to do that. They're very unified. And if they're not unified on that issue, they're not going to come out and say we're not unified. They're going to be like, yeah, we all believe in God. And yeah, we're all Catholics. And yeah, we don't support abortion. And yeah, we don't want our taxes up. It's like they've got these hard things that even if it's like, it reminds me somewhat of being like, in this strange way of being like Jewish. If you're culturally Jewish, you still stick to a lot of the religious Jewish practices.
Yeah.
And you identify, with everything about it. You don't go against it, or you don't say like, nah, this year we're going to do that instead. We're not going to have, we're not going to have the soup and the balls this year. We're going to do this. No, everyone's like, no, we're going to have the soup and the balls this year, because that's what we do. And I feel like that's how the Republican Party acts, opposed to the Democrats. There's too many, thinkers and philosophers and idealists within the party. And I think we just, we do a lot of cross canceling. And then we've got extremists as well, who we just can't say, okay, these are the 4 things we do. Yeah. And that's what we do. And every time we got to vote like that. And every time we got to believe that. Like we're not cult. You know what I mean? We're not like a little cult. We're not like a little group. So we're not a little amoeba, which I feel like the Republican Party is. They're like, we're a little gang. We're a little amoeba. We don't separate. And I think it's going to take, I don't think the Democratic Party is ever going to get to that point. I think there's too many leftists, there's too many thinkers, there's too many opinions, and there's too many, they just don't, I just don't think we'll ever get there. And I don't think we've ever gotten there. And now having these two moderates is sort of a little bit nerve-wracking in a lot of ways, because it feels like they may drive the country to like a lukewarm place, where they do a lot of things that are conservative or still keep conservative laws or conservative policies that we've had that need to be changed, for example, or even bring in conservative policies and work. And So that's a bit nerve-wracking, but the only thing that gives me a little bit of confidence is that they're not in office. They haven't done anything yet.
Mhm.
And they know both Kamala and Biden are very political leaning. They're not party, in my opinion, they're not party leaning. They're political leaning. And so they will go where where they feel the country may be going, which is not necessarily it might not be in line with where majority of the Democrats, for example, want to go. You know, I feel like they'll like feel the feel where where the country's going, or a majority of like the constituents want to go, and they'll do that. But that also is worrisome because you don't always know why. Like, it's not always a good idea to follow what the people want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not, but then it gets into socialism here, right? But like, it's not always a good idea to follow it. But in the same time, it's like, as an example, like, what if we have some kind of a domestic war?
Mm.
I feel like there's a high chance, just like, I don't know if you know what happened in Chicago with Mayor Lightfoot.
Mm.
There's a bunch of protests happening in Chicago, and Mayor Lightfoot decided to open the bridges and like put them up so that you couldn't walk across.
Okay.
And so a lot of protesters believed that was in direct response to the protesting itself, and felt like, she was trying to appease the wealthy people in that area who were like, this is terrible. And it made it a lot harder for a lot of people to go to work and all this shit. And like, that's the common person, right?
Yeah.
So in order to keep civility and keep peace and stuff like that, there's this part of me that feels like maybe both, maybe the Biden Harris administration will walk very conservatively.
Oh, they're going to. They were chosen to walk conservatively.
I mean, they were chosen really. They weren't chosen to walk conservatively. They were chosen because we knew that they were the most in the middle we could get in the party, where there's a chance that conservatives would take them seriously.
Yeah.
But the thing, it's just overall, it's just scary with them because there's just such a big question mark.
Yeah.
No one knows about them. Everyone knows about Trump. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. It's like, what you see is what you get now. We don't know that with Biden and Harris.
Biden's been in DC for 45 years or something crazy like that. We know, but we know what Joe Biden stands for, what he is. Kamala's been in politics for 20 years at this point, I think.
So but they've both done good and bad, and they've both been sort of wish-washy.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know where they go unless you look at what's happening what's happening during that time. You look at things on a bigger scale, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why they probably did what they did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But but you only know that with review. If you don't review it, you're just like, wow, they're like shitty. They're just like, they're clearly just politicians. Yeah. But Trump, I feel like you just always know the dude's going to do some like crazy ass shit, and it's probably going to be really conservative, and it's probably going to support his agenda, but at least that, terrifying as it is, that.
Yeah, I think more importantly than, because Kamala and
you were right the first time, Kamala.
Sorry, I have a coworker, a Hawaiian guy I work with, whose name is Kamala. So every time I say her name, I say, as soon as I start to say it, I keep wanting to say Kamala, and then I catch myself like mid Kamala. It's going to take me a while to get used to that for some reason. I don't know. Vice President Harris and Biden, um, you know, the one thing I guess about them is, they're basically just going to follow the party lead. They're not going. I don't think they're. I think it's pretty clear at this point in their lives, like they have a record, they have a past where they've never really been people to try and lead the party in a direction, but they will follow the party in a direction. So then it kind of becomes upon who's, somebody has to push the party in the direction we need it to go. Because
I don't really think they're going to push the party.
no, they're not going to.
I don't think they're going to be able to push the part. I don't think they're going to push the party anywhere but in the middle, because I don't actually think anymore that that's going to be their focus. Because you're looking at them, in my opinion, I feel like if we look at that, then we think about them as being senators.
Yeah.
And that's just not a large enough role. It's too it's just not a large enough role. If you say, okay, I guess that's why I don't think their party, I don't think that they will move that way. Not now.
No, I don't think they will either, because progressives only have 10 votes in Congress total between both houses. So all this, most of the people I kind of run in political circles with here in Denver are left of me. They are outright socialist. I am not a socialist. I would consider myself more like I just basically want democracy and capitalism to operate in a sane manner to where it actually benefits the majority of society. That usually means to some kind of hybrid capitalist socialist system with very strong democratic leanings. But a lot of my friends are outright socialists. They dream of the socialist takeover of the Democratic Party and then America. They are thinking that they're going to be able to push the Democratic Party towards progressivism with 10 votes in Congress. And I don't know why they think that or what they're thinking, but the fact of the matter is Democrats have 10 progressives in Congress, and that's because they just added a couple. They only had like 7 last time. Now they're up to 10. So the party's not going to the left. The party at best will stay where it is. Most likely it's going to move a little bit to the right. I don't know what that's going to cause down the road, but that is the one benefit that the Republicans do have that is a huge problem for Democrats. And I don't know how Democrats are ever going to figure this out, how to solve this issue. But
what will end up happening is that the Democrats will end up moving more and more to the center, and we'll end up having to have an extreme left party. Like all of a sudden we'll start to see like the Green Party being a real thing, or
yeah.
you know what I mean, and could possibly also be that way for the Republicans. But honestly, I doubt it. I really think that they're all going to be able to come together on this shit.
Well, Republicans, it's easier because basically the two Republican groups you have are like the people, like most of my Republican friends, that have this obsession with free markets and thinking that tax cuts for rich people trickles down, and they buy into that shit hook, line, and sinker. I mean, it's like a religion to them. That's the one issue that decides their vote. Like that is the only reason they vote Republicans, because Republicans, every single time they get in power, they do what they're going to say on tax cuts. They always do some kind of tax cut for corporations every single time they get the chance to. And that's why my friends vote for them. And then you have this other group that's kind of like your evangelical psycho Christians that vote for them because they want to see abortion overturned, and they want to see basically a Christian Sharia law and brought into America. And my friends that want those tax cuts are Christians as well. They don't really want the Christian Sharia law stuff, but they're willing to accept it, and as long as they get those tax cuts. Whereas on the Democratic side, you have people that are kind of more like I would say we are, where they want more of like a social democracy. They still want to keep capitalism. They still want to keep democracy. They still want to keep liberalism as, the core tenets of our nation, but they want those things to operate differently in a more just, humane kind of beneficial to society, not just a tiny portion of society way. And then you have outright socialists, people that are trying to, their entire goal is to take over the Democratic Party from within, turn it into a socialist party, and then turn America into a socialist country. They look at liberalism as fascism, or at best fascism enabling. Like they look at capitalism, even like the Scandinavian version of capitalism, which is a very hybrid system of capitalist and socialist policies. They look at that as right wing. These kind of things. Like they believe in open borders, just letting immigrants from all over the world, and these kind of things. So that is what Democrats are kind of dealing with, is that civil war, whereas the gap between like the right wing and the left wing of the Democratic Party is far, far bigger than the gap between like the moderates and the right wing and the Republican Party, I feel like. So it's like, it's almost like we have three parties in this country, but two of them are in a constant state of civil war for one party because we have this two-party system. And I don't know how that's going to play out. Obviously, socialists feel that they're always one election away from taking it all over and, turning this place into, was it 1917 Russia or whatever with Lenin, but God bless them. I mean, right. I definitely think their heart's in the right place. I think they're a little crazy sometimes, and I think they're harming the party because they are extremely militant in their views. Like they're uncompromising, because when you view liberalism, which is like the foundation of everything America is built on, as basically equivalent to fascism, then there can be no compromise there. Like it's not like you can compromise there, Whereas like the Republicans, they kind of look at these people, they're like, I don't really like these crazy Christians, but I'm a Christian too. We all kind of believe in the same thing. Like, let's all be friends.
That's it.
On the left, that doesn't happen.
No, because we don't have something strong like that to keep us together. It's like, it's interesting because a belief is not enough.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like a belief, if tied to religion, is enough.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious to me. It's like, wow, like, okay, if we were all like, yes, social issues are the way. Yeah. That's what we do, then it's like, well, then why isn't that carrying us? But it's because we need our own religion, I guess.
Well, that is the weird thing, is because the social issues are the only thing that unite Democrats, really.
That's what I'm saying.
Because like with the Republicans, like they're kind of united somewhat on social issues, and then enough on economic issues to where they can keep it glued together. Whereas
those social issues are religious issues, issues which are associated with belief. It's very cyclical. So it literally just goes into a circle. They're like, I believe this.
Yeah.
This is a social issue, which is also my religion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It just goes, it's amazing. But like, we're not tied to that, which is why I think that it's very Jewish almost, Yeah,
because the Democrats don't have the cohesion on economics. They have the cohesion on the social issues, but social issues enough, I think, I would hope after, I don't know, it's been 3 or 4 election cycles now that they've ran on social issues pretty much. And all of those have been very contested elections. Usually if there's a surprising loss, it's usually on the Democratic side. And they got to figure out some kind of economic message that's appealing enough to the masses in this country to make them consider voting Democrats, because it's not the social issues that make my Republican friends never refuse to consider voting for Democrats. It's the economic message. Like,
yeah, your friends but a lot of them are Christian. Did you say? Your friends?
Well, they're Christian in the sense whereas like you were raised in a Christian household and,
But that's enough. That's what I mean.
They're not Christian in the sense where they go to church every week and they're reading the Bible all the time and it's a key component of their life or anything.
I have so many Jewish friends who speak like that. They're like, I'm culturally Jewish.
Yeah.
which is exactly what it's like. They don't, they were raised just like that. They were raised in the church, and they respect it, and they follow some traditions and blah blah blah. But it's like it's still a big thing
Oh
because it's
yeah.
still identity,
Yeah.
and so which is a social issue. You're part of that group, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so
I do think that's something else Democrats need to um, also stop running away from is because Democrats, I can't even think of the last time I heard a Democratic candidate really acknowledge that faith plays a role in their life. And there are religious Democrats. Like, I feel like if you're a religious Democrat and you are of that Martin Luther King strain of Christianity where your faith kind of compels you to try and create a better world, talk about that shit. Don't run from that shit. Like, don't pretend that Democrats are, because I feel like Democrats kind of, I don't, I don't know if polling has told them like talking about your faith is like
because
a
normally
loser, but yeah.
education and faith do not go together.
Yeah. But I
They
just feel
go
like
together.
Hillary Clinton's a perfect example. Like, she's an extremely faith-based woman. I didn't know this until after her defeat, but the fact that she is like so driven by her faith, but yet never talked about it is just like one of those examples of like why people thought she was so fake and inauthentic because she wasn't being herself. Like, she
I
was trying to
don't
be what she thought
disagree.
people wanted her to be instead of
I
just be
disagree.
herself.
I don't think in the Democratic Party that's something you should highlight. If someone asks
Well,
you,
no, not the Democratic Party. I mean, like a national, when you make it to the general. Like in the general election, I don't think it's bad for a Democratic presidential candidate if they are a faith-based person. I don't think you should fake it just for votes, but if it's part of who you are, then explain to people like how your faith compels you to have the policies you have. If that's a driving factor in your life, like I'm an atheist, it's not going to appeal to me, but Christian moderates out there who, maybe aren't really happy with the Republican Party and are looking for an alternative, it might appeal to them if they're like, oh, at least this person's, faith based. Like, I at least can relate to them in some level. Like, I know they're not going to be a crazy radical who wants to completely alter America to, some leftist utopia or whatever. I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
those, I feel like in Hillary Clinton's case, most likely a lot of her support is not coming from religious people, as in religion. As when I say support, I mean money support.
Yeah. And especially if you look at the places where Democrats are getting their asses handed to them.
Correct.
Like, those are the places where if you happen to be a Christian Democrat,
Yeah.
don't shy away from that in like Iowa or Indiana or Kentucky. Like, maybe if you're in Los Angeles, I get it. Keep that shit to yourself. But if you're in like, Missouri and you're running as a Democrat, it might not hurt you to talk about like why what you read in that Bible or what you believe in Christianity
I
compels you
think
to,
in large
do these
part,
things.
Democrats want to, I think in large part, Democrats always want to appear inclusive. And the moment they start to like say like this is what I identify and this is important to me and this is how I do things, then lots of people are going to think then this is how they make decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that I see why you're saying that because it says something about authenticity, but I think that's too real. And I think, what I mean by too real is that like it doesn't jive with a lot of people um, who give money and support the Democratic Party. I don't think that messaging jives.
Well, hypothetically speaking, say Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton added some, talk about their faith into their thing. Do you think that's going to get Democratic voters not to vote for them? Like, who are Democratic voters going to vote for at that point?
Yeah, I do. I think that we'll have a lot of people who decide they're not going to give their vote. They're not going
Wow. Well, if
they're
that's
not.
the case, the Democratic Party is not inclusive like they like to think they are. Then,
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it can be looked at as divisive.
and honestly, like I think it all kind of boils down to that in a nutshell: is the Democratic Party is not inclusive. They talk about inclusivity, but they are very exclusive with the party and who they want in the party. Um, and I think that's a large reason why they kind of struggle too. Is it's very clear to half the country that the Democratic Party doesn't want anything to do with them, and looks down their noses at them. So it's like, how do you win voters when you
Party,
openly have contempt for
you
them?
know, the Democratic Party was really, in my opinion, conservative. It started conservative, very, they're not too different from Republicans in a large sense,
Yeah.
but they're different, and we are seeing that in a much bigger way because we're looking at both Biden and Kamala, and we're like, well, what's going on here? Like, are they Republican or are they Democrat?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if that isn't clear, with how we see the Democratic Party, I mean, yeah. Anyway, we could keep talking about this. This is going on for too long. I know this is our last episode, but all of this needed to be said. And it was really good chatting about this. And I'm looking forward to our next season, but also praying for a smooth transition for our next administration and for the safety and the well-being of America. We really need that.
Yes. Amen.
And on that note, everybody stay safe, stay hydrated, stay COVID free if you can. Have a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And we will see you next season.
Yeah. See you guys in 2021.
Oh my God. Orange is not my new black.